Hi there, and welcome back to Faith for Finances. My name is Sam Piercy, and I am your host. Today, we are talking about the money and the mission. And I am joined by two very special people in our life. They have a life that is surrendered to full-time missions. They've traveled all around the world. But when they got started, they had what most people would call a nice, comfortable life with their family and their dream home. And God called them. And so we're going to talk about what that looks like and how do you actually walk that out on a day-to-day basis. So welcome. I'd like to introduce you to my special guests, Marlon and Susan Craker. They have their own ministry. They are in full-time mission and a very, very special purpose to help people see the world and to walk out the love of God, not as the world sees it, but as God sees it. And so let me introduce you to Marlon and Susan Craker. And do you guys, why don't I just turn it right over to you and tell us about your ministry and your missions to start with, and let's look at how we'll go backwards.
Sure. Yeah, no, we're delighted to be here. Our ministry obviously has been transforming. God takes us through different seasons, and we're in a new one now. Excited to be here, but definitely has been a journey of faith and learning to trust God. It actually started way back when probably we were single. I personally felt I had a call to be a preacher or a policeman. I know those two sound very diverse, but they're very similar in many ways, dealing with people, and God very specifically led us to enter the career of being a police officer. But it started, before we met, and God just brought us together. He so has a great plan for all of our lives, and led me to the love of my wife, and we have enjoyed a great marriage. It's not been without challenges and journeys, but it's been amazing in terms of how God has led us together into where we are now. So
Susan, did you know that it was a policeman or a preacher when you first met, or was that afterwards?
I did not know it when I first met him, but over our time of dating, it did come to a point in our relationship, whether we would continue or not, because he did tell me that, Susan, you know that I'm called to be a policeman or a preacher. And he asked me if I was okay with that. And I said, yes.
Because they are, I mean, in most people's lives, they would seem polar opposite. Yeah. So let's talk about how you got started then. So you were a police officer.
Yeah.
And you had your family. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I do think it's important to realize that, God is always preparing us for what he's called us to.
Yes.
And a lot of times those calls and dreams are placed on us when we're young. And we might not even see them as being God, but God and his plans for us is instilling ideas and thoughts and dreams into us to position and to prepare us for, ultimately his destiny for us.
Beautiful.
When I went to, I basically, at 18, I surrendered my life to Jesus. I was raised in a Christian home. Susan was raised in a Christian home.
Nice.
Very, very thankful for that upbringing. But, went my own way, basically. And at 18, I decided, I'm going to live for Jesus and realized that he actually talks to us and started to speak to me in different ways and direct my life. I ended up going to university. I was not academic in the least. My whole life was cars. Up to that point. And so God just shifted everything in my life, and I began praying for my wife and what she would be like. And I felt, when I met Susan, I had to actually chase her for 3 years before she said yes to a date. But on that date, God spoke, and we both knew we were to be together. And fell madly in love. But during that time, I was going to Christian University, Trinity Western in Langley, actually. God led me there because my dad worked there, and I got free tuition. What a blessing, because otherwise it wouldn't have happened,
It's beautiful.
So went and was going to school, met her, the whole process of finally saying yes to a date. And, God's timing is perfect. But in that time, I felt that I was called to be a police officer over being a preacher, and began to pursue the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, at that time. But when we got married, we made a covenant before God based on Deuteronomy, I think 24:5, where God is telling the Israelites, don't let young men go into the military service for a full year, but let them stay at home pleasing their wives. And I was really committed to marriage and family. And I said, before we got married, I said, let's make this commitment, this covenant before God, that for the first year, we're just going to love on each other and get to know each other and develop a foundation for our marriage. And, I'd applied. It took me about 4 years to get accepted into the RCMP. It was a slow process then, due to, the lack of need for members. But was going through the process. We got married, finished university. Susan finished nursing. She was trained as a nurse. So we were committed to that first year just to having, a good marriage, having fun and developing relationship, not getting involved in things. But halfway through our marriage, I got a call from the RCMP. Oops. And they said, Marlon Craker, yes, congratulations, you've been accepted. And we want you in training 3-4 weeks down the road. And of course, very military, what they say you do. But God reminded me of that commitment. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't go because I'm newly married. And so I hung up the phone. They asked what her name was. I thought I just gave up a career. I said, God, have I given up this career that I feel you're calling me to? But the amazing thing was 5 months later, they called again. And they said, Marla, we have a new date for you. They gave us a new date. It was within 1 day of our first year anniversary. So we knew God was leading us specifically into that. Beautiful. I went to Regina for training. She followed. We ended up being posted to Saskatchewan and living our lives. And we had 3 children there, and God very much was in it, taught us a lot. We were able to be involved in getting a local church started and different things. So God was using us in ministry even though
you're in that training.
So, when we're committed to the Lord, ministry is our life. And the whole aspect of being called into a specific ministry is a whole other thing. But as a follower of Jesus and his disciples, he wants us used. So
he put that on your heart. He put that on both of your heart. So when he got the call halfway through that 1 year commitment, and he hung up the phone and said, Lord, have I just given up my career? What about you? How did you think about that?
Well, at that point, I just left it to the Lord, and we just carried on.
Yeah.
Because I was doing what I wanted to do.
Were you working? Nursing. You were working at something else then?
I had a good job at a warehouse, actually.
Oh, at a warehouse. Okay.
I think one of the things it did for Susan, if I can speak from my side, is that it really solidified my commitment to her.
Nice, yeah.
And it really established a foundation,
beautiful.
of what God wanted to do in our lives. Because, as I believe that we operate, we're yoked together by the Spirit of God.
Yeah.
And that yoke is perfectly formed, biblical example, what Jesus said, using the yoke analogies, the yoke is formed to the oxen. Yeah. So that the oxen can pull without getting sores. Because the minute you have a sore on that beast, it cannot pull. Yeah. And so we've operated our married life like that if God calls one of us, usually it's probably me, I wait until she is coming into alignment. And that showed itself later as God called us into leaving that career. And
so you had that foundation in your marriage, and you started off with policeman or preacher, and now you're going down the pathway of policeman. And you've got your family, and you have your home, and you have a lifestyle based on that career. So what was the process then that went from policeman to full-time missions?
Well, I would say, when I got into the RCMP, they posted us in Saskatchewan from BC. We actually loved Saskatchewan. It was a great place to go. It was such a blessing in many ways. But we always said family first. And I didn't like the aspect of being moved all over. Yeah, I saw the effect it had on children, and then we said, I don't want that to happen to my kids. I'm going to quit the RCMP, or we're going to move. But the Lord kept me in that career for 8 years, and then we went to medicine at police service, so we could be stationary, build our dream home, which we did. God bless us with land. We built our dream home on an acreage, and I had a good career going. Yeah. And we just felt this is where we're going to see our grandkids. They're going to come back to this place, and But then God started to stir in us, and it wasn't that it was a call to ministry. It was actually a stir to more intimacy.
Oh, with God.
With God. And out of
Okay.
that
Together?
desire, and
Okay,
we were
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were going together.
we
Yeah,
were
I like it.
fully committed to the Lord at that time. It wasn't that we were backslidden. We
Yeah,
just
yeah.
wanted more.
Yeah.
Wanted more of the Holy Spirit. Wanted more, and we started to seek after God. About that time, a ministry came to town called Impact World Tour,
Okay.
which was a YWAM, Youth with the Mission ministry, that was evangelistic, and they
Yeah.
used entertainment as a means to reach the community. Our whole city was involved in it,
Nice.
and they held a series of 4 different crusade nights in the arena,
Okay.
and all the churches were involved. It was a big budgeted thing, and I was doing security.
Oh,
for it.
okay.
And
Yeah.
Impact World Tour used 3 modes of entertainment to reach people.
Yeah.
One was called Island Breeze, which was cultural dance. The second was called GX International, which was break dancing, hip hop, and they
Oh, yeah,
interspersed testimonies and the gospel, preach the gospel.
Yeah, nice.
So that was a drawing card, drawing people in through the entertainment and then preaching the gospel.
And your kids would come with you to these things? So were your kids involved at that point?
Well, no, they weren't involved at that point. And then the third group was Team Extreme, which was a power team.
Okay.
They did feats of strength, to preach the gospel.
Yeah.
And so the Team Extreme guys saw that I was obviously, into fitness and weight training, and they said, you got to come with us. And during that time, they gave a call to India for a
Okay.
short-term ministry because Medicine Hat, the city, was going to host their ministry over to India.
Yeah.
And we were at an all-church event, and our kids were sitting somewhere it was a pre-event at the arena. So our kids were sitting in one area, we're in another area, and their leader gave this call, and we all felt the call.
Yeah.
And we got home that night, and we were all excited about let's go to India. Now, at the time we were building a house, we had no money
Yeah.
that was available. Every dollar went to the house, to building. We didn't have a
Yeah.
cushion account. We didn't have any of those.
Yeah, none of
good
that
things.
stuff. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And so we went about for the next 6-8 months. I don't know what the exact period of time was, raising funds for us to go. We needed $14,000 Canadian. And God in this time was teaching us to trust him,
Right. Okay.
preparing us for the call that he would bring to ahead of us having to make that decision at some point down the road. So we went about, we needed $14,000 and we were doing, whatever sales or fundraising, people were donating, and we needed.
So did you were with the I want to get into the minutia, if that's okay. We don't need to talk about like the personal stuff, but the minutia of you need $14,000. And of course, Susan, you had just said that you had prayed that you wanted to be able to take your family somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now all of a sudden your whole family is like, okay, we're going to go. You're raising money. You're with an organization. So you had sales, you were like,
We were going with
Bakes.
a group.
yeah, okay. So the group was doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. But
Okay.
we did need this money. It's a very
Yeah.
critical part of the story
Yeah,
because
yeah,
God
this is
was
great.
using this to build our faith. So we needed about, I think it was $8,700 for the plane tickets by October 10th. or
Whatever.
it
Okay,
was.
yeah.
And so we were raising and just before we had about $50,something and the mission office gave us a call and said, someone else gave you $550. We said, great, we only need $730 more. At the time I was doing a job renovating a fourplex that one of my coworkers came to me and said, hey, I've got this fourplex. If you renovate it with my husband, you should make enough money to pay for India. But we never got it done. So we were raising money and I'm going to work on that fourplex that day. I need this money today. And so I go there and I go to the post office and say, God, I know, I'm learning faith. God, you're going to provide.
Yeah.
So I go to the
Nice.
post office, I open the box, it's empty. And I say, oh, now I got to go. Lord, we discussed with our kids that we wouldn't go in debt over ministry,
Yeah. Okay.
that we would trust him, that we would not go in debt over ministry. Now I got to go write this on my credit card and put this on my credit card.
Yeah.
So I go to the mission office, I write a check for $730, go home after, come into the house, and my oldest daughter runs up to me. She's about 12, 13 at the time. She says, Dad, did you hear the news? We didn't have cell phones at that time. And I said, yes, someone gave us $550. I didn't want to tell them that I had to put this on my credit card because we had really integrated our kids into the faith walk.
Yeah.
Very, very crucial to their development and to our walk as a family.
Yes.
And she says, no, Dad. Says, we got a call from the mission office and they said to us that they're very sorry, but they overcharged the Quakers for their 2 youngest children for their plane tickets by $730.
Yes. Yes.
And so, man, our faith shot through the roof.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
we were able to raise all the money we needed. In fact, more so to give to other people. And we went to India. It was life transforming. We came back wrecked. I say we saw at one point, just for example, we saw like 28 deaf girls in a deaf school healed of deafness.
Oh, that's this trip. Yeah.
Yeah, we cast demons out of people in church services and saw healing. My little children saw people healed. It was like an amazing time.
Yeah.
So we came back, and obviously we were wrecked and went on with work. So, but God put in our heart for that. That mission bug was there now. It was fully engaged.
Yeah.
And so I said to Susan, let's take a 10-month leave of absence. And if God grants us a 10-month leave of absence, then we know that he's calling us, we'll do it. Well, sure enough, they gave it to us. We had no money to go on this trip. But that fourplex that I started renovating, we finished and sold it, and we made $36,000.
There you go.
Which paid half of probably what we actually needed on that trip.
Yeah.
And so we went from there and ended up going to a YWAM school. We got to go to Kona, Hawaii, beautiful place to start your mission ministry. And took their school. And then we were supposed to go to New Zealand and team up with Team Extreme to evangelize New Zealand. And that was the way YWAM works, is you do 3 months of a school and then 2 or 3 months of a mission.
Yes. Yes.
And we were kind of thinking, this will take care of the mission bug. I'll do this, we'll go back, I'll finish my career, and everything will be good.
Yeah.
Because God's grace is like that. He doesn't give us more than we can handle.
Yeah.
In that sense. And he gives us the grace to say yes or no to it.
Yeah.
And so we came back and we went, and what happened, we all of a sudden were told that the trip to New Zealand has been postponed for 2 months. And so that really rocked us.
Yeah.
Because now we had 2 months and we had $4,000 cash left after paying for tickets and for the school of that money. The dollar was at 65 cents on the dollar, Canadian to the US.
Yes.
So everything was super
More
expensive.
Yeah.
And we have 8 to 10 months of ministry and $4,000 in the bank. And God was just teaching us to have faith and to trust.
Sure.
And at that time, then people started saying, because our class was going to Hong Kong and then into China and the Philippines.
Yeah.
And we weren't going to do that. We were going to go directly to New Zealand. Now we had 2 months, exactly the timing that we had, for that trip there. And we had to raise 14,000 Canadian, which was 20,000.
Again, another 14,000.
Which we didn't have. And so we learned some valuable lessons about faith,
And provision. So let's talk about, so you had a group, and then there was some group fundraising activities, some group ideas. What kind of things did you do? So you had the God provided through the sale of that fourplex. You did some group activities and some fundraising. What kind of, I want to talk about some of these, because people go, well, I don't know what to do, and I don't want to ask people for money, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to do that, and too many decisions get made based on the money that they can see.
Yeah.
Or the time that they think they have. So what kind of things and how,
Well,
Share some of that.
personally, in that walk, in the walk that God's put us on, it's, there certainly are those aspects of raising the funding. We did things like, hamburger sales, and a lot of it was God bringing money in through people.
yeah, okay. So
Through
you would have
fundraising.
stepped out. You got a purpose, you got your family, the call on your heart, the circumstances with now people coming into and having all of these great events, and then taking it one step and then the next step and the next step. And then you would have had to share.
Well, we
with
definitely,
the people that are around
for
you,
sure,
share with
we
your
definitely-
family, share with your church, share with,
presented the vision, what we felt God was calling us to do, and people responded. And we did our own efforts and, different things that we did, but largely it was, God teaching us to trust him and that he was able. So, in that trip to Hong Kong and China, 14,000, 20,000 people, we really had to just rely on God for that.
yeah.
And so we were in this process of believing, and God was showing us by bringing in funding through various means for that. There was actually no way we could have done anything apart from him and his hand in it.
Now,
So-
one of the things that I find, and I'm sure you find it, because you guys definitely live by faith, and you give all the credit to God, and you know that He's the provider, even though finances tend to come through people at on some line. A big part of what the money minding community is all about is just that, is community, so that you can have the encouragement, you can have the support, you can have that creative ideas. But I have had plenty of experience, and I'm sure you've met lots of people that they are more expecting it to come from people, expecting it to come from a job, expecting it to come from an employer, expecting the finances to come from somebody else or from some other place that they can see before they go off to pursue God's call. Can you comment on maybe how, was that a process for you, or do you think that somehow that came as you sought God? I mean, the scripture is really clear. You seek God and all these things will be added unto you. But can you comment on that?
Well, I think what for us, and it's still a continuing journey that God is showing us, is that that we have to believe His word.
Yeah.
We have to believe His word.
Yeah.
And we have been growing in that. It's still in that stage of growing, trusting God for the supernatural, and learning that it's not always in our time frame, but it totally is about Him, and being open to do what He calls us to do. I think that, in the kingdom, God raises and provides He's not limited in how He does it. I look at, Ephesians 3:20, our God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that you could hope or imagine. How? According to the power that's within you.
Within us, yeah.
So there is a declaring and a decreeing and believing in faith what the word says.
And then stepping up and doing it, right? Because it's not enough for us to just go, oh God, please, like you were saying, like, oh Lord, how are we ever going to take our kids on a holiday? But then you had to have gone to some of these events. Like, you have to actually get in motion. You have to open your mouth and speak something and share the vision and share the passion. What about, just in the sort of the last couple minutes, what about the process of actually selling your home and leaving your place of your comfortable paycheck? Because, so many people get conditioned to every couple of weeks there's a amount of money in the bank. Yeah. And so what was that like? Well,
we saw God supernaturally provide that 14,000 US to go to Hong Kong, China. We came back while we were, just all the little things. God was building us up for that point to come and say, we'll lay down everything and give it to you. We actually gave away our vehicle prior to going on that trip. Felt God was calling us to give it away, and we're in this faith mode, so we gave our van away. Yeah. To us it was worth a lot. It wasn't a super valuable piece of vehicle,
but it was your transportation.
And little things. So the whole biblical principle of sowing and reaping. Yeah. We sowed it into a family that needed a vehicle, and we ended our trip and came back and said, we don't have a vehicle. I'm going to have to pay taxes on $36,000, which I didn't, because that was my income. And we hadn't made that much, but we thought we were. Yeah. And we put an email out, said, hey, please pray that God would give us wisdom and how we're going to take care of things when we get back, because we really didn't know what we were going to do. And I received an email that from one of the people on our YWAM missions training, said, we've got your answer. We got a vehicle. We're going to the Philippines. They had the same call. They were given everything, and we want to give you our vehicle. They gave us a vehicle worth 4 times what we gave. Yeah. Beautiful Suburban at the time. It was like the details that God will meet when you allow Him to are incredible. So then we came back and then I started the process. Okay, now I'm done. I'm going to go back to my career, and I'm going to, I was advancing, and it was going great, and I enjoyed it. It's not that I wanted out of it, but God's pulling our lives. So you went back into the police? Oh, yes, for 14 months. Okay. And so, we're in this process, and that whole concept we talked about earlier of God leading us as a couple. There are times I think that one of us makes a stand and we have to come into agreement on it. But I was battling because I couldn't shake the call. And we had our dream home, and we were set. And obviously for a wife, it's a different journey than for a man. And Susan, maybe you just want to say some of the things you were experiencing at that time.
I think for me, I was experiencing excitement, but kind of not a trepidation, but just a wonderment of what what is going to happen if we did this.
Yeah, what if?
And God was so faithful in confirming to me that He would take care of every detail, everything from, going from having our amazing insurance covering that we had for dental, medical, whatever. And He showed it to me in His Word, and according to a book but in a book I read, that He would even meet your dental needs.
Wow.
And that was kind of the clincher for me to say, okay, God, you've got this, and I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, we had this dialogue for about 14 months. How is God going to do this? God's going to do it. God's going to do it.
And without knowing. Yeah. So we're going to continue this conversation because, of course, there's always overflow, and it's definitely a process. So our Faith for Finances journey with going from the regular flow of money, all those creature comforts, into full-time missions is what we've been talking about with my guests, Marlon and Susan Craker, who have stepped into full-time missions and been all around the world now. You can find out more about them and contribute to their ministry at faithforfinances.com. And make sure that you also get the downloads of, this is a process, and it's going to be different for everybody. And we want to invite you into this community because you had a community that was praying and that was alongside, and we want to take that journey and just tap into that, and one step and the next step, knowing that God is going to meet us because God's leading us. So God bless. We look forward to sharing with you a lot more